Hey folks, Nick here from AnotherBooktuber channel, and today we are continuing the Swamp Thing read-along. We are reading The Saga of the Swamp Thing number 24, script by Alan Moore with art by Stephen Bissette and John Totleben. If you haven't done so already, I highly recommend checking out the previous videos in this series so that you are caught up on where we are with the story. Really quickly, Dr. Jason Woodrue, the Floronic Man, is wreaking havoc in Louisiana. He has formed a connection with the Green after his research on Swamp Thing's body, and the Green has instructed him, or at least he believes it has, to destroy humanity. But not just humanity, destroy all animal life on Earth so that the Green can take over once again and create another green, a new green world. So that's where we are. We'll kick off, we'll take a look at the cover here. And this is Stephen Bissette's first cover in this run, and it's really ironic that he has to draw basically the entire Justice League on the cover. It's ironic because Stephen Bissette hates superheroes, and he does not like drawing them. So he probably hated having to do this cover, which is really sad. But my guess is that they were probably working on this issue before they got like reception back on Moore's first few issues, just because of the way the scheduling works in comic book creation. So they didn't know how the series was doing yet with Moore taking over. So DC most likely said, "Hey, you got to do a crossover with the Justice League. We got to get some superheroes people recognize on here. Maybe drive some readers in." So that's my guess as to why that happens in here. It's a bit of a fake out because the Justice League doesn't do a whole lot in this issue, but they are technically in there, which I imagine meets the mandate that Alan Moore had to meet. It's just an okay cover, nothing too special. We'll go ahead and we'll start talking about the interiors and the story. The story is called Roots, and we begin by taking a look at the Justice League satellite. We get an establishing shot of the Justice League satellite in orbit, and they are watching the video that the Floronic Man created in the previous issue. He recorded himself destroying a town and recording a message saying, why he was doing it and who he was and all that. These bottom panels, I took a long look at these because they're so photorealistic. I was curious if they were maybe just photo collage where, maybe somebody at DC, put on some makeup to make themselves look like the Floronic Man and they just took pictures of them. I think it might just be really great pencils, honestly. I honestly cannot tell because it does look so lifelike. On the next page, we do get more of those TV screens. These are more obviously drawn, including this one, even though this one also looks really, really photorealistic. But yeah, I don't know. I've always wondered that if it was maybe some photography there. But this is just recapping what Woodrue did the previous issue. He's giving his monologue about trying to regress the world back to the Stone Age, that they're all going to be dead within a year, and the Justice League has heard enough. Green Lantern turns off the feed, and we get our first look at the Justice League kind of characters, but they're very heavily shadowed and not really given too much center stage here. I imagine this was Alan Moore and Stephen Bissette being like, all right, we're gonna put these characters in here, but don't expect them to get any hero shots or anything like that. You get the bare minimum. So Bissette was probably happy with that. Nevertheless, I do like this firestorm. I really like the way that looks with the heavy shadow. Where the extreme light of his head fire lamp is creating this top lighting on his face. So I think that looks pretty cool. But they're basically like, where did this threat come from? We've been watching New York, we've been watching Metropolis and Atlantis, but who was watching for LaCroix, Louisiana? Who was? The Swamp Thing was. The Swamp Thing here on this splash page is confronting Dr. Jason Woodrue, trying to get him to stop the madness. I think this is, unfortunately, not the most intimidating image of the Floronic Man. He looks a little bit small. He looks a little weak, a little impotent. His moss diaper definitely isn't helping things. So Not my favorite of the splash pages we've seen so far, but really arresting colors here on this entire spread with the very saturated greens and reds and the yellowish orange of Woodrue himself. The red works really well, especially in this panel here where we have the wall of fire background. We have Swamp Thing's silhouette behind him, all in black, but his eyes, I don't know if you could see that there, but his eyes are still glowing the same red as the fire. So really cool imagery there. And at first, Floronic Man doesn't know why Swamp Thing is there. He says, but what are you doing here? You were rooted to the ground. I saw you. You were gone. You were in the green. Oh, that's it. You were in the green, so you must have heard about my glorious victory, and now you're here to share in that. You've heard the great news that the green is taking over the world again, and you're here to enjoy that and reap those benefits. So here you go. Here's the first human. I offer her up to you. Take her life. She's my reward to you. Swamp Thing, the even lip. He ain't taking none of that. We flip over to the next page. We get Spack. He gives him a good wallop. Floronic Man goes flying. Really interesting marks here, because I'm not sure if the pencils were done this way or if this was just Totleben's inking that interpreted it, but there's no holding lines around Woodrue. Like you can see here, that's just color meeting color. It's the same here where the ink line stops where his arm is, so you don't get outlines of his figure. You just have these really thick black marks that are creating that motion illusion. And then they tell Tatiana Wood, the colorist, just fill in the color of Woodrue to create his form. It's a really interesting technique. I don't know that it's my favorite, but it does appear to be. I would like to see the black and whites of that. I wish there was maybe pencils of that existed that I could see. But yeah, Swamp Thing's not having any of that. He rescues the woman, and great panel down here of you can almost hear Woodrue spitting the word traitor through his teeth here, his big white teeth. Just some great shots here of these vegetable characters and all of their vines and stuff. Really awesome imagery. Woodrue throws a tree trunk through Swamp Thing's body, creates a good little motion here where he lifts him up and then he lands. So we get that arc, which is really cool. It doesn't slow Swamp Thing down too much. He's back on his feet. He's got his fist ready to go. He's ready to have a good old-fashioned American brawl. Down here, Abby is talking to one of the townsfolk who's saying, everyone's running, but this guy, he's not running. He says, I lived here all my life. I got roots here, so I ain't running. I'm going to go fetch my old Evangeline, and I'm gonna go get her right now. I'll be right back. And, Abby's like, who? Evangeline? What are you talking about, crazy old man? But anyway, Floronic Man's not fighting fair. He's using his plant powers. He's got Swamp Thing tethered to the ground. And Abby is lamenting that there is no hope left at all. We go back to the Justice League satellite where they're talking about why all of their various powers are no match for the Floronic Man, which is really kind of silly when you think about it. I mean, Superman alone could probably easily take care of this, but you've got to find some excuse to not have that happen. And I do think Alan Moore is kind of making fun of Superman a bit here, because at this point in comics history, there was very little that he couldn't do. He was so all-powerful. So it's suggested here, someone suggests to Firestorm, who can restructure atoms to be something, else. Why don't you use your atomic restructuring ability to convert the oxygen molecules into carbon dioxide and restore the balance? Because that's what Woodrue's doing. He's having all the plants in Louisiana pump out way more oxygen than they used to create this wicked imbalance in the atmosphere. And they're saying, I can't do that. It wouldn't work. Superman says, for one thing, do you know how many molecules make up Earth's atmosphere? If you wanted, I could count them, which is such a ridiculous boast. I know he's powerful, but the idea that he can count the molecules that make up Earth's atmosphere, I think it is Alan Moore kind of pointing out how silly Superman has become at this stage and how too powerful he is. But regardless, this whole page is just to say the Justice League can't do anything. Really like this Hawkman here. Beautiful. I actually really, really like that Hawkman, that panel. So good job, Bissette. We're back in Louisiana, and Woodrue is attacking Abby. I really like this panel here, where he's just got mostly silhouette, but just highlights of color, so that you can get some of his form, his eyes peering through there. Really unfortunate shadow of his diaper there, right between his legs. Kind of looks like something else when everything's blacked out, but you know, life goes on, and we get to the bottom here, and we get a big sound effect that starts small and ramps up, and we see it ramps up to this image of a chainsaw. That is Evangeline. The old man went to get his trusty old chainsaw. Who doesn't name their chainsaw, really? On the next page, though, he is very quickly dispatched, and the chainsaw is now in the hands of Woodrue, who makes a really, really interesting connection here. He talks about how the chainsaw is a symbol. Your film industry has canonized this instrument, has it not? Meat movies, in which the horror rests with the idea of doing to humans what humans do each day to trees in their thousands. Which, I mean, it really does recontextualize the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies quite a bit. I never considered that. Maybe those are great environmentalist movies, and I never put that together. You know, I certainly, you know, we do be cutting down trees pretty frequently, and I guess if the tables were turned, I mean, I don't want to get chainsawed. That sounds really unpleasant. More of these crazy black marks of just movement over here, which I like. I think it works better here. I don't know why, but I just like, I particularly like this all red panel, where you get this crack that's cutting through the red, and we see here when we pull out that Swamp Thing has snapped Woodrue's arm. He's broken his arm, and Woodrue's kind of whining here. Why do you keep coming back? Why? Why do you keep coming back and hurting me? Because he thinks that they should be on the same side. And we get my favorite moment in the issue here, where for just a moment, all of the anger and aggression is gone between the two, and there's this weird, like, sincere connection where Swamp Thing tells him, I'm hurting you because you are hurting the green. And there's this moment of quiet in Woodrue's face where he's got this great sadness where he's like, me? You know, could it be that I'm the problem here? And then quickly he's like, no, I'm not the problem here. Humans are the problem here. You know, the green is the one that told me to do this in the first place. So how could I be hurting the green? And Swamp Thing tells him, look at all this. This is not the way of the wilderness. This is the way of man. Your way, Woodrue. The green did not do this. You did. This is what you wanted. You are ill, Woodrue, and you poison the green with your desires. And in this bottom here, he's becoming undone, and we could see that represented by these panels resembling kind of shards of glass that are actively breaking. And it causes a severe fraction within Woodrue, and he's not willing to accept it. He's not willing to hear that he's mad, and he says, you know, no matter what, this is going to continue. The plants will continue to pour out oxygen, and all of the animals will die, and only we shall remain. And Swamp Thing hits him back with, and then what will change the oxygen back into the gases that we need to survive when the men and animals are all dead? And it's that moment of realization here where, and it also reflected in this awesome panel where he's having this just moment of realization and the tears start pouring down, where the green is agreeing with Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing has convinced the green, like, yeah, you know what? Humans kind of suck, but without them, we also die. Because it's a symbiotic relationship in which, you know, they need our oxygen, we need their carbon dioxide. And what's happening here on this page is the color is kind of fading out. where we've had such vibrant colors the whole issue, and then we get these cool colors here because the green is receding from the Floronic Man. He's no longer feeling that connection, so that the green around him is becoming more blue, more cool, more distant, until we have this vertical panel here where that connection is gone, represented by a blank background. He feels nothing. That connection has been severed from the green. And losing that connection causes Woodrue to go screaming into the swamp. I love the trailing text of just as he gets smaller in the distance. And then Abby and Swampy reconnect, and they kind of summarize, what just happened here for those who weren't paying attention. She says, he realized that the plants couldn't survive without man, and so the plants backed down. And Swamp Thing replies, yes, I wonder, will your people do as much, against this great silhouette of a chainsaw in the foreground. It's an age-old argument. They were saying in the 80s, they're saying it now, and they'll say it in the future. We've only got one Earth. We treat it like crap. Why? Why aren't we treating it better? Nothing ever changes, unfortunately. This isn't new information. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But they go on here, and she's asking him, you said you weren't Alec. He says, no, Alec Holland is dead. He died many years ago in an explosion. It's just taken him a long time to lie down. He's gone now. He's at rest. I am the Swamp Thing. And she asks him, are you happy? He says, yes, I am happy. And I'm going to be going home to my swamp where I'm the happiest. Floronic Man still running through the woods screaming, and he is, because of his connection being severed from the green, he's now ranting that he's just a man. He's not a plant, he's a man. He grabs his can of spray flesh, and he's trying to get it back onto him to make himself look like a human again. Finally, the Justice League shows up well after the danger is done. Really good silhouette here of Superman and Green Lantern over the full moon. Good panel here where Green Lantern's light is just shining through the blackness to show that they've arrived at Woodrue's lab. And we get this great reveal here where, he's become so disfigured that the skin didn't, go on smooth over his body, and he just looks like this demonic little imp, and we get more of that fracturing because his mind is just completely gone. And Superman and Green Lantern escort him to Arkham Asylum for some rehabilitation. Arkham's so good at that. And we conclude with Swamp Thing back in the swamps. This incredibly iconic image of him opening his arms, a sun salutation as the sun sets in the Louisiana swamp. This is a beautiful, beautiful image. It's been used by DC Comics time and time again. And it does conclude this first major story arc in Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run, the Floronic Man arc. Next up, issue 25, The Sleep of Reason. So, all right, that brings us to the end. We'll pick up next week. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything from this issue that you particularly enjoyed. I hope you continue to stick around for the future installments. We're going through this whole thing, baby. We're going through the whole run. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you keep watching. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now, it's time to get back to reading.